Hello and welcome back to the Pau Fans International Podcast. I'm your host, Antoni, and I'm joined with Alex today. Alki wasn't able to make it, so it's just us two, the two Americans. Alex, how's everything going?
Antoni, I'm good. New year, same Panathinaikos. A little different Panathinaikos actually. But I'm good and I'm excited to talk about it. We got a lot to talk about as always.
Right, yeah, that's right. Kali Kronjara, everybody. Happy New Year.
Kali Kronya.
You know, New Year, new us, I guess, right? Kind of a literal sense for our team. We had a little bit of a shakeup. Um, you know, I think the Christmas time not only brought a lot of happiness and smiles and surprises, but it also brought us kind of a shock as well as fans of Panathinaikos as we saw that we switched coaches. I believe the Australians might have touched on it the last time, but we wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. December 26th, day after Christmas, we wake up, at least I woke up, checked my phone. I see Jovanovic is sacked and gone, and it was just kind of a shock. And we saw that Fatih Terim, Turkish coach that from was at Galatasaray for such a long time, takes over the club. And it's been a couple of weeks and still trying to get used to it. Alex, what was kind of your initial impression when you first saw the news of Jovanovic getting fired?
I was definitely shocked. It it was weird because I was actually in Greece at the time, which didn't really make it any different, but I was like my phone was charging and I was not on my phone for probably 2, 3 hours. And then when I came back to my phone, it was just like the apocalypse kind of. um, there was so much from the chat and just from Twitter notifications and just other notifications from other apps. So yeah, it was just like a wave of information. But it was definitely a shock, even with some of the stuff that had happened recently, like obviously exit from Europe, and we had that shock loss to Atromitos. But all of that seemed to kind of not die down, but after both of those disappointing results, we still had the 3-0 at Volos. So it kind of felt like the situation was at least somewhat diffused. And if he was Jovanovic on the hot seat, it felt like maybe he wasn't as much on the hot seat following that Volos game. But I guess the Volos game didn't either A, didn't matter, or B, the decision was done before that, which I think that second thing that I said is probably the case. And we could talk a little bit about when we think the deal was done. But yeah, it was just a shock, even with those results.
Yeah, I agree. I woke up, first thing I do, I check my phone, I open it, and I see actually our own account, Pau Fans International, is the first thing that popped up on Instagram. And it says, I can't, I think Serge had wrote the caption or something that we can't believe this, thank you for everything. And I'm like, wait, what? I checked the chat and everybody, like you're saying, it was like the apocalypse in there. Everybody's going crazy talking about what happened. And I was shocked. I'm like, Jovanovic got fired because the same sentiments that you had. Yeah, we got eliminated in Europe. We lost to Atromitos, but then we had that solid showing against Volos. And so I thought that diffused the situation as well. I thought at the very least that Jovanovic had the winter window to bring in some players, some reinforcements, and kind of build from there. And if January we had a rough January, maybe I would have seen that the sacking coming. Um, it was just a shock, and I mean, I think just on top of it too, just the way that we did it day after Christmas, I wasn't happy about it, especially from all the things that Jovanovic did. I know there's kind of been like a split in the chat about it, where he's a good guy, Jovanovic, but we were in second place by a point. Um, but I mean, honestly, I don't know. I felt like with all the things that he did and how he brought us back into being relevant again, I feel like he deserved that shot, or he deserved that respect at the very least, to try and put up a fight and bring those players that he needed in the winter. Because, in my opinion, he was underhanded a little bit without the center backs and all the injuries kind of plaguing that. Because I brought this point up as well in the chat that last year the problem was we weren't really scoring and creating chances, but we were very good defensively. This year he switched that. He fixed that up. It's not like we were stagnant, right? He made the changes that were needed to the tactics. Our scoring went up, our XGs, things like that. But then we had the injuries to the back line, which is that's out of his hand, you know. And I'm a little bit conflicted because we brought in, Terim. We brought in Fatih Terim, who when we first brought him in, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, what, this 7-year-old guy? I'm like, I was like, what is this? This is like a classic Panathinaikos move. But on paper, I mean, he has a very good resume and he has like a commanding presence. He's almost like the opposite of Jovanovic. I think he's a little more stern versus Jovanovic was more of like a nice guy. So yeah, like on one essence, I'm fully supporting the new coach, but on the other side, I'm left feeling kind of bad for Jova, who was I don't know, we gave him the short end of the stick in my opinion on the dismissal. That was just kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with basically everything that you said, and you know, not to call people out, but like Coots, for example, has put out some decent points. Like, this is a business. Like, at some point, like you do show respect and stuff like that, but at some point, like you just have to make the business decision and
Right.
move on, no matter how much or little a person has helped you or done for your club. As ruthless as it sounds, it is a business. So I can agree with that sentiment. I don't think that's wrong at all. But yeah, still that doesn't make me not have that bittersweet taste in my mouth, like you pointed out. And in terms of Terim coming in, I think even if, how can I put this? Even if Jova leaves, rightfully so or not, it's always going to be an uphill battle for Terim to gain the fans' trust because the previous guy was so loved and left on somewhat poor terms. So it's also not doing justice to Terim, in my opinion, if you kind of backstab Jova. Nothing to Tareem's own fault, but that's just kind of like a side consequence or a side effect that comes with that. I don't know if I articulated that well, but it's just something that I don't know if Alafouzos is thinking of when he kind of like does a sly one on Jovanovic like that. Plus all the things that we heard, like Jovanovic allegedly learning it through the internet.
Right.
Is that true or not? We don't know. That's just speculation. But if that's true, it definitely doesn't make it any better.
Right.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you actually brought that up and you did articulate it well because it reminded me exactly of what I was saying in there as well, where Terim now has basically expectations of win or bust, at least in my opinion now. Because you sack Jova, who's 1 point off the top, and we saw what happened over the weekend with our rival that was in first PAOK. They ended up losing out, and we're back in first now, which we'll touch on that in later on. So now the sentiment is you get rid of Jovanovic because it's win or bust. That's the message that sent to me, and I think to all the other fans as well, where Jova's been sacked because we've blown 3-4 point lead, which in my opinion is nothing because you can lose a point here and there. You can drop a game just like PAOK did. We're back in first. So that also, like you said, puts some heavy expectations on Terim to win or bust. And he's taking over another guy's team. And he's got this crucial January window where we've got a game against Olympiacos tomorrow, a game against the Icon on the weekend, and I think Olympiacos again next week. We've got some pretty big games, and we've still got the shorthanded squad that Jovanovic had with the defensive issues. Our defenders are all injured, so it's kind of put Terim in a compromised position in a way where I feel bad because it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to win because you're gonna have to win all the fans over and show that the sacking of Jovanovic and the way that it happened wasn't for nothing. Because if it was for nothing, then I mean, I don't know what to say. It screams bad luck on our part, in my opinion.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So we'll. I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks. Personally, I think all of us as Panathinaikos fans, of course, we're gonna support Terim. We want the best for him. We want him to succeed. I want to win the league title. That's my main thing. So I am, as much as I love Jovanovic, I'm fully supporting Terim now. He's our coach. And we've had a small sample size so far, but I mean, there's some things to pick from Terim's time so far, and that was that first game against Yanina. It was Panathinaikos versus Yanina. We ended up winning that game 2-0. And I mean, just off the bat, I think we saw like almost like Yova ball, but on a little more of steroids, if that makes sense, where we were pressing like from the get-go. I mean, we were pressing hard. The game started and we're pressing, pressing, pressing. Yanina again, I believe, are in last place, so they're not the best team. But in my opinion, I think that's a great way to start to build momentum is against those sides who, I mean, in the past, let's be honest, have taken points off of us and utterly humiliated us. I mean, a couple of years ago under Bologna. So we came out, we had those positive looks there of Terim ball. We were able to get on the score sheet and just kind of force a lot of errors. Jan and I are one of those teams where they play hard. For me personally, I think the one thing that kind of concerned me a little bit of the game, and again, it's not on Terim, it's just with the squad that we've got. It's the style that we play. I don't know if we fully have the legs for it, number one. And currently our back line is like paper mache. Like if we start playing teams with like better offenses, let's say like Bauk and I'm kind of worried about what are they going to do if we don't, make these signings quickly. I mean, again, we're playing Olympiacos and Ike in the next couple of days. That's the thing that does worry me a little bit. And again, it's not on Terim. I like the tactic. It's just with the personnel we've got right now, are we going to get punished until we get those signings? We're going to have to see. How'd you see the game, Alex? I mean, compared to Jovanovic, who has been on the team for so long. Now we saw Terim against Yanin on that first game. What was your like initial impressions of his tactics now we played?
Okay, right. Like you said, it's the sample size is small and the sample size is, a relatively weak opponent. So everything that we're gonna say, has to be at least taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. But one thing I did notice is that and I'm just gonna call it the ease of attack felt really good. And I'm speaking only about the Yanina game right now. We'll get to the Panetolikos game. But in the Yanina game, the ease of attack felt really good. And what I mean by that is, we didn't put 20 shots past them. We probably, off the top of my head, we probably put like 10, 12 shots in total, and probably half of those were on target, which is on par with what we were doing with Jovanovic lately. But the quality of attack felt better. It felt more higher quality, just to repeat what I just said. But yeah, and then what we were doing recently with Jovanovic, and even with Jovanovic recently, we were scoring a lot of goals, and we were creating chances. It wasn't like we had 5 shots a game. We were in double digit figures in terms of shots, but the quality of shots felt still not as good, and it still felt in a way labored. As weird as that sounds, if there was many games this season where we were winning 3-4-5-0, and we were saying at the end of it, that's kind of a flattering score line. And the reason that you're saying that kind of stuff is because obviously maybe a 2-0 score line would have been more representative of how it went down, and that's because the quality of what you were doing wasn't representative of putting 5 past the opponent. But here, I'm not saying against Yanina we could have scored 5, but it did feel like the shots we were taking were higher quality, and that felt good. In addition to that, I noticed that the avenues of attack were different than what we were doing with Jovanovic. With Jovanovic, we had gotten used to really playing on the wings, and basically, if not that every attack came through the wings, but if it wasn't falling through the wings, we were kind of stuck. And there was one specific game that I remember recently that really like just painted that to a T. might have been the Maccabi game, and I even said in the chat like we're going to cross the ball 50 times and we are not going to score. And it was the Maccabi game because then we did end up scoring the one goal via cross, but it was a kind of a joke goal because like it hit off of Ioannidis' face in a lucky way or whatever. But yes, my point is that with Jovanovic, we're heavily relying on play through the wings and creating chances through the wings. While in the Yanina game, I noticed that a lot of attacks were coming through the middle of the field, through the axis. And I think both goals actually came through the middle of the field, not from play on the wings. So that was something I noticed about Terim ball. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really caught my eye. I'd say like the first 10 minutes or so. Just kind of like that link up play where we saw Mancini and we saw I don't remember if it was if he had played like Villena kind of like on the left wing, but it was almost like they were like central. They were playing more through the middle and connecting with Ioannidis a lot. And that was something that was like a little bit refreshing because like you said, Jova ball was very reliant on the wing play, like very reliant on Palacios and very reliant on Aitor and just kind of crossing the ball in. We didn't really play too much through the middle. And I think that's where we kind of struggled as well. We were like to your point, we were scoring goals and making shots like the last few games or so, or last month or so with Jova. But we were being, I think it was like incredibly efficient. Like I saw some stat, like I think we're the most efficient scoring team in the league. So it's not like we were creating, like you said, like high quality looks. It's we were putting away the low quality ones at a high rate, which is something similar to what we saw last year around this time too. We just didn't have the volume of the chances, I guess. So that was a plus from watching that game, where we're actually having some positives there. We're changing our style a little bit. And I mean, Ioannidis is Ioannidis. Like he's incredible, but I felt like he was even more confident with that link up play. I think we've got to continue playing Mancini as a starter, in my opinion. I think we've been saying this for a while. He and Ioannidis just have a good connection there, and it leads towards a more fluid attack. Um, I mean, and another positive that I also liked as well is that Terim is not afraid to like make adjustments. I think that was my biggest criticism of Jova is where, like sub wise, he waited. It was always like 70th minute, 75th minute, 80th minute, where he would come in and make a change or make a tweak or make a substitution, whatever it was. And I feel like Terim saw whenever the opponent was switching up their tactic, he'd adjust accordingly. And I mean, even like switching positions, he kind of had to do this out of necessity. But Arau as a center back, he mentioned when he was the coach at I think it was it Milan where he had switched. I think it was like Seedorf and turned him into like a center back or something for a game at his press conference. He mentioned it. So I like having a coach that's a little ballsy and he's not afraid to make adjustments as needed. Um, so I mean that was just I got a lot of positives out of that Jan in that game. Again, oh sorry, what were you gonna say, Alex?
Yeah, I think as a first impression, the Yanina game was like a very good, a very positive and encouraging situation. And one thing I wanted to touch on that you said is making the adjustments that he is willing to make. And one thing that stood out to me, and you mentioned this about the wingers, is that he tried Villena in the second half as a right winger, and that was particularly interesting to me because of what we know about Villena and his history. So Villena for us has been basically a center mid, but in the past he's also played as a left mid, left winger. But he specifically chose him to try him on the right, not the left, which to me was telling because he was specifically looking to use an inverted winger, left-footed player on the right side or a right-footed player on the left side. And what I noticed is that, like you also touched upon this too, is that he was trying to get the players to cross less, and I noticed that a lot of the players, including players that weren't wingers but found themselves on the wing, for example, Foti, were cutting in rather than just dead crossing the ball. Something that I think is really different than what we were doing with Jovanovic. It seemed like a lot of the times with Jovanovic, the players were just like crossing the ball no matter what, like not really trying to be creative at all. But if you cut in, it kind of not only does it offer a different uh, avenue of attack, but you also keep your options open. Cutting in instead of just going for the cross, you could still cross the ball after cutting in. So you cut in and then you have, let's say, a chance to take a shot on goal, or you could still cross. You basically keep your options open, which I think is just kind of a smart thing when you're in the final third. You don't want to limit your options. And if you take the ball towards the goal line, you're basically limiting your option to just a cross, which is, like I said, what we're doing with Jovanovic. So I really liked seeing that. The Velena on the right wing didn't really work out for me. Um, he's I don't think he has the pace for that anymore. But I did appreciate him trying it. It was interesting. I liked seeing at least that he was willing to take, some sort of small risk in a low risk situation to get some information about the players that he has on hand. Um, but I'm interested to see going forward if he's heavily favoring opposite foot wingers down the road, because from the first game, it definitely seemed like that was the case. From the second game, not so much, but he also didn't have everyone available to him. So I'm curious to see when he has everyone available to him, left-footed players and right-footed players, how he favors who plays on what wing and what they do based on their feet in game.
Right, right. Yeah, it was, and that's right, exactly. Like he had played Velen on the right wing. That's why I had mixed it up. He had played on the left wing in the past, and I did like that he tried to switch things up a little bit. And so for me personally, something that I really like as well is like when I was a kid, I liked watching like prime Barcelona and those teams. They didn't really rely on a lot of crossing. They relied on that direct play, getting into the box, which I really like. That's something positive. Crossing works because it's pragmatic, but it doesn't always work. And like you were saying, in the past, we were kind of crossing just to cross and hoping
Exactly.
it was gonna smack Foti on the right side of the cheek and go in.
We're also not a team. Sorry to interrupt, but we're not a team just on paper that is going to benefit from crossing. We're not tall. Okay, Fotis is like what? Let's say he's like 6'2" or something, but he's not particularly tall. He's not particularly prolific in the air either. All of this put together, I'm not saying we will never score off a header or something, but we're not a team that should be heavy on crossing, because we play one striker who's not tall, who's not relatively prolific with a head. You're not using the best things that you have to your disposal to your advantage.
Right.
Forti is particularly good with his feet, with a hold up play. We shouldn't be looking to find his head on every attack that we're creating. And I think that Maccabi game was the epitome of that. It showed it perfectly, because literally we had the possession, we had the ball, we were crossing every 30 seconds. We probably had something like 30 fucking crosses that game, and we were doing nothing from them. Also, our track record with corners also shows that we're not a team that's going to benefit from crossing. We don't score off of corners, and that's a point of concern. We should be better at that. But the fact that we're not just naturally good at it shows that we're not tall, we're not good in the air, and that's not what we should be playing towards. We could look to get better at it, but it's not just something we're naturally good at.
Yeah, exactly. We're like we discussed this before we started recording. We're a small team, like defensively and just through the ranks as well. I mean, Palacios is like 5'5", Mancini's like 5'7", Foti is like probably our tallest forward. He's like 6'2", like you mentioned. So we really didn't have the tools for the crossing unless they were low crosses, and even then, it didn't always work out because we didn't always get everybody in the box anyway. Um, so this more direct style of play suits the personnel I think we have as well, because guys like Ioannidis, which you mentioned, he has great hold-up play. Mancini, very good with holding the ball and dribbling. Same with Palacios. He's got that explosive pace. He can get behind the defenses. I like that direct style of play, and I think it is going to be a lot more positive, especially going forward. That's something where maybe we can catch out some of the other guys, right? Like some, in my opinion, I feel like I don't have like the best defense, and I feel like us playing kind of direct is a good way to catch them out. For example, on some of those pieces, but to kind of like continue this as well. We beat Panetolikos yesterday, or sorry, on Sunday, and that game ended up being 2-1. We saw a lot of the positives that we mentioned as well. Particularly something that I really liked is that Terim went and made some adjustments at the half, or like a little bit after the half. It wasn't wait like he didn't wait too long to make the adjustments like we saw with Jovan in the past. I really like that. Something like not to be negative as well. This is more so like on the player. I was a little bit concerned with Lodigan a little bit. Like I felt like not only in the goal that Pantoliko scored, like he kind of like he was way too low, first of all. And I felt like some of his reaction times were really late, and he made it a lot scarier than it needed to be. I mean, I understand Panetolikos were cutting through behind and taking advantage of our high line, but there's some times where I'm a big fan of Lodigan, but it was like I don't know, he's making it a little scarier than it needed to be, a little late to the reaction to grab the ball, or maybe coming last second to make that dive. That kind of gave me a little bit of a red flag. I'm not sure why Brignoli didn't play. Maybe I don't know if there's that contract thing going on still with him or not. Um, that was a point of concern, as well as I mentioned that high line where Panetolikos, they can kind of punish you on those counterattacks, and it just kind of worries me a little bit with that game against Olympiacos, where on the attacking front we're good. I think we're gonna start to gel and be more positive on that front, which we've already started to see. It's just defensively where we're kind of lacking personnel at the moment, where it's like, are these tactics going to screw us in such a vital month? That's where I am a little bit worried about. And that's what I got from that second game.
Um, yeah, to your point about the tactics, I even think he said that. I think Terim has said that I mean, we know about him that he's very attack minded and attack focused, and he's even said that basically like we're gonna concede goals, which you know if you score more goals than you concede, fine, but it is just kind of a concerning thing, like you said, knowing that we're shorthanded on defense, and it's only time will tell. I would definitely feel better if we were full strength at defense and had the personnel to score more goals than we conceded, just to put it in his own words. But yeah, in terms of the image in the Panetolikos game, um, it I don't know. I felt kind of weird after it. Obviously, we got the win, which is the most important part. But for me, it was like kind of a step back from the Yanina game, and what I mean by that is like it kind of where the Yanina game felt like it was a different image than the Jova era. The Panetolikos game kind of felt more and more like the Jova era. And I don't mean that in a particularly bad way, because I don't think the Jova era was a failure or bad, but it just felt like one of those games under Jova where like we will get the win, but it's kind of labored. And there's factors outside of maybe Tareem's control that played into it. For example, like we immediately, it was obvious that Panetolikos was happy to sit back and absorb pressure and kind of playing for the draw, let's say. Um, but at the same time, you have to a good team and a good coach has to be able to unlock those kind of defenses and tactics when that's thrown at him. So if he's not going to fall into the same kind of um, criticisms as Jova was, I feel like it's these kind of games where the opponent is very close that he has to kind of really bring out his attacking football that he's kind of well known for. And that just didn't happen in that game. And I'm not neither of these two games am I throwing any judgments yet. Like, it's just, these are just observations. He doesn't have the team. He doesn't have his team yet. He doesn't have his ideal personnel from top to bottom. So obviously there's other factors that are outside of his control. But yeah, I think if he's really going to set himself apart from Jovanovic, and the Terim era is going to be as a whole more successful than the Jovanovic era, like it's these kind of games with closed opponents, whether it's in Greece or in Europe, that I would really like to see him unlock these defenses since he's so attack minded.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree, and it kind of falls back all the way to what we said at the beginning, where I think Tareem's entire tenure is going to be compared to Jovanovic and what he's able to achieve in comparison. Um, and yeah, I mean, part of that is going to include these types of games where he's going to need to try and unlock those defenses. I mean, a lot of these tightly packed teams are a major pain to break through, especially in Greece. And I don't know, like you said as well, it's very early to make the judgments or anything. I got some positives out of it, but I just go back to what we said at the beginning, where I do kind of feel for Terim a little bit because he's expected to win now. Like he's expected to win now, and some of the personnel were, again, to your point, where he said, we'll score more than we concede. It's like, Terim, do you know the players that you have yet? Not that they're bad players. It's just that we don't really have a full on goal scorer to, like a Berg. I always mention Berg all the time. Nick's gonna mention that in the chat. Berg, you knew was gonna score. You knew you needed a goal. Berg was gonna score. Hey, there we go. Look at that, Berg. He's a legend. That's my favorite Panathinaikos player. You just knew he was gonna score. You just knew you needed a goal. He was gonna step it up. Right now, we'll find ways to score, but we don't really have that killer. We don't have a killer striker. We haven't had a killer scorer since Bird. It's been, since 2017 when he left. And that's where I'm like, you know, I would like if we tightened up the defense a little bit, brought in some players, which we'll get into. Um, but yeah, this just kind of brought that back. It was like a full circle moment for me, where it's like, yeah, Tarim, you're gonna have to figure something out, because your whole tenure is going to be based on Jovanovic's successes and you unlocking and adjusting, something that Jova was kind of criticized for, in my opinion.
Maybe at the same time, and this is something I've kind of started to think about over the first two Tareem games, is that I'm seeing from top to bottom of the players that are playing in these games, I I see the quality of their performance to be pretty high. And what I mean by that is there's not many players that are on the pitch who are not performing at least decent,
Right.
especially in the first game. Like we didn't blow Yanina away, score wise or performance wise, but everyone who played like put in a pretty good shift. Something that wasn't really the case with the Jovanovic era. Like we would win, say we would beat Yanina 2-0, and we would have like maybe like two or three standout players, and everyone else was kind of like meh. But in this Yanina game and the Panetolikos game, like let's say out of the 15 players that featured, 11 starting and 4 or 5 subs, whatever, most of them were like good. I could say like I could give them a pretty good rating, most of them. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that I'm kind of getting the feeling that perhaps Jovanovic wasn't getting the most out of certain players. And we could see, and it's too early to tell now if I'm right and which players this applies to, but I'm gonna pick out a few. Like for example, Villena. Both games under Terim, Villena has been a completely different player in my opinion. I wasn't particularly fond of Villena's time with Panathinaikos up until now, but it seems like he could be ready to explode now under Terim. Uh, is that based on just new coach? The player gets like a new sense of life. Perhaps is the coach using him in different and better ways. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But he's just one example, and I'm curious to see how he progresses under Terim in the future games. But other players that could apply to are also like Sporar. Like we just saw Sporar score 2 goals. And Sporar kind of does this every now and then. Like he's nowhere, and then he like gets a brace, and we're like, oh my god, this is the scorer we signed, whatever. So I'm not reading too much into it just yet. I'm not getting my hopes up, but if it is a case of Jovanovic not getting the most out of certain players and Terim getting the most out of certain players, like we could see, maybe Spore turns into not a goal a game kind of guy, but a more of a goal scorer than we've been used to. And that would answer your question, like where is Turin's attack going to come from? Where is this attacking play, goal scoring football going to come from? And if he thinks he could make Spore our scorer again, or bring out some more prolificness from Foti too, like
Yeah.
I'm backing him. Like that's the difference. Like I guess what I'm saying is like Jovanovic wasn't even in this season where we saw more attacking football from Jovanovic. Like we never really considered him as an attacking coach, and he never prided himself, at least outwardly, as an attacking coach. But Terim does pride himself as an attacking coach, so I wouldn't put it past him to be able to get the most out of players like Foti and Spor and Yermeyev that might have not been, uh, doing as being as prolific in front of goal under Jovanovic.
Yeah, yeah, and to that point as well, I think like you mentioned with Spora, because I get ahead of myself sometimes too with him, and I kind of caught myself this time where he scored twice, and I'm like, oh, okay, he might be back.
But
I'm
they were both strikers. There was both strikers finishes. Like
they were, they were, and I'm kind of like I'm gonna hold my breath because the last few times I got ahead of myself where he went like 2-3 games scoring. So I'll see how he kind of develops over the next couple of weeks under Terim, and I'm hoping that we find the scorer. But just looking at his career trajectory, he's always kind of been like this, where like he goes on these little streaks and then he just disappears. Like I think he was at Middlesbrough before we got him. He was at Sporting in Portugal, same thing. So I'm hoping he unlocks that. But something that I forgot to mention as well that I liked is for a while I was saying, and I think you were saying it as well, and a couple others, like I would have loved under Jova to have seen a 4-4-2 where, we've got those two forwards and we saw Terim kind of pull that out, which I thought was cool because Foti, in my opinion, is not really that classic number 9 target man. He's that hold up player. He'll get people involved and he'll run behind the striker, which I think is like his bread and butter. And so playing him with either Sporar or Yermeyev, I think that's a positive. I think that does help us out with our attack, um, as well as kind of like helping our shape as well. I kind of am a fan of that 4-4-2. I think it's that classic shape where it does help you a little bit defensively too. Um, I mean, time will tell. Again, like we keep saying it again and again. This is only 2 games in, and we're kind of just dissecting what we've seen. I I think it's been a lot more positive than I thought it was going to go. Honestly, I was really worried that we disrupted Jova's team right after Christmas. We've got crucial games coming up. We still haven't played those games, but we're back in first place again. PAOK lost. We won both of our games under Terim so far. Back in first place. So things so far are looking positive. I think we're going to get another taste of what to expect against Olympiacos tomorrow. Um, a higher quality opponent compared to who we've played with so far. And we'll see what Tarim's going to go with. I mean, we both know we're going to be playing attacking. It's just how ballsy are you going to be, Terim? Because I think Terim gives me the vibes that he's a pretty ballsy coach. So under Jova, I think we're a little more cautious in bigger games. And under Terim, I think we might be a little more ballsy and adventurous, which I think might be a big key towards success this season. So time will tell. Time will tell. But let's see. How about transfers now? So we kind of broke down a little bit of the games that we've seen so far. A couple of games under Terim. We've kind of noticed, and we've been saying for a while, even under Jovanovic, some of the holes in the roster. Now, kind of something that was a little bit of a surprise for me. I mean, not a surprise, but kind of out of nowhere was we signed Dimitris Limnios, who was playing. I believe he was playing in Germany before in Stuttgart. Used to be a PAOK player. Uh, I mean, I saw fans excited about it. I'll be honest. I'm kind of like neutral on the move, if I'm being honest with you, Alex. Where I feel like we have really good wingers as it is. Again, Yova was very adamant on wing play, so he made sure we had good quality wingers. Limnos is a quality player. Again, he's coming off of injury. I think he was out for about a year or so. He's coming back in. He's training. I saw on the Instagram today from the club. And Kleinheisler is out on loan. So we brought in a winger. We loaned out an auxiliary winger slash, attacking midfield player. I think that's good in the sense that in terms of Limnos, like we've added another tool to Terim's arsenal. But I don't really think that was the move that we really needed. And the vibe that I kind of got, and I think Alex, maybe you mentioned it, or maybe somebody else did, is that we kind of had that move already agreed upon even before Terim was hired. I think that was under the wraps before. What are kind of your thoughts on us bringing him in?
Right. So what you're referencing is that I did mention that I saw a report that the Limnios deal has been settled, and this was a week ago or so. But the Limnios deal has been settled for like a month plus now, so dating back to like late November, early December, or something like that. Um, um, so yeah, that was like kind of like a weird that made me feel kind of weird because like it's like who is making this deal? Is it was it a Yova? Was it a Yova signing? Is it just an upper uh personnel signing? Whoever is calling the shots. But it doesn't seem like it's a Terim signing because if that's to be believed, it was obviously before Terim's time, unless Terim has also been planning on coming since late November, which is also possible. Um, Anyway, so with the Limnios deal, do I like it? Do I not like it? Um, I think you nailed it. Like you said, it's not what we need. Obviously, the first deal that we should have made was a center back. But alone, if we take it alone, I think it's a good deal. I don't dislike it. I think there's some positives. He's Greek. We need to up the Greek aspect in the team. He's at a good age. He's 25 or 20. He's 25, I think, right?
Yeah,
So he's at a good age, and we have him for on a 3.5 year deal. So until he's 28, 29, that then he would be hitting his prime. So in itself, I don't dislike it. Obviously, he's coming off of injury, so there's a lot of question marks surrounding him. Um, I think it's a pretty low risk kind of situation, though. I don't think we don't know what kind of money he's on, but I would guess he's not on huge amount of money. Um, at the very least, he could be a depth piece. Uh, I don't know. Overall, it's not going to blow me away. It's not going to blow anyone away, I don't think. But I think there's upside there, so I'm cautiously optimistic about it.
yeah, yeah. Same. Like to your point too. It's like it's low risk, high reward. I guess there's a higher reward that could come out of this than what we got. And again, like you said, we don't really know the wages that he's on. Um, but there is that positive too. He's a Greek player. Doesn't take up a foreign spot. Um, young player, young guy, 25, 26 years old. So we'll kind of see what develops with him as things go. In terms of Kleinheisler, uh, we've discussed it. I liked Kleinheisler. I didn't think that under Yova he got as many chances as he deserved, in my opinion. Um, High energy, hardworking guy, plays for the Hungarian national team. Good quality, good quality guy. I think he went to Croatia, right? To Hajduk. Um,
He went
is
back to Croatia, yeah.
he
He
went back to
came he
Croatia?
came, he came from Osijek, which is like a mid-table team,
Right.
and he went back to Hajduk on loan, and they're competing for the title. So I mean, we don't know what position, what role he's going to have in the team, if he's going to be a starter or not. But I I completely agree with you. Like I think he didn't really get as many chances as he could have with us. I think he's a good player. There was even at one point this summer where he was kind of touted to be a starter ish before we made some signings like Juricic and stuff like that. So I think he has quality, and I think the fact that he's going to a competitor, a title competitor in Croatia is also a sign that they view him pretty highly. So I don't know. Maybe he comes back in the summer and fights for some playing time.
Yeah, that's my hope. I like Klein. I like Kleinheiser. I think he's just a solid working player, and I love that he can score outside of the box. And to your point, I mean, you go to Croatia to join a team fighting for the title. I mean, that kind of speaks volumes to the type of player he is and his quality.
Yeah.
So I am happy that it's a loan, because originally it was rumored that he was going to be sold there, and ended up being just a loan. So happy about that. Now, this kind of ties into what players we want to see in. Center back defensively is something that we've all been calling for, and it's been made apparent. It's in the newspapers. The teams mentioning as well. Clubs been looking for center backs. Now, somebody was mentioned today. A name has been thrown around in both Turkish and Greek media, as well as Panathinaikos specific journalists, mentioning a guy named Somet Akaydin. He's a Turkish guy, center back from Fenerbahce, and he is rumored to be coming to Panathinaikos on loan for 6 months. Now, I don't know too much about this player. I honestly haven't seen too much. I've just kind of done some digging on social media, and I saw some Turkish fans mentioning that he's played for the national team. I see a split where some are saying not a good player. I'm seeing another split of fans saying no, he's a good player. He's played for Turkish national team. He plays for Fenerbahce. Um, at this point, I mentioned in the chat, Alex, I'll take whoever we can get at this point, because we're playing a makeshift center back in Arau at the moment, and we've got such a big thing coming up with all these big teams and big games. I'll take this guy. What are kind of your thoughts on this guy? I'm not sure if you know too much about him either.
Yeah, I also don't know much about him. I mean, to be fair, I had not heard of him before he was linked with us. But just looking at some of the facts around him, he's 29, so he's in his prime. He's 6'3", so you know, he's taller than Jedvaj and Schenkenfeld, so he had some height to our defense. Um, he's played his whole career in the Turkish league, and the most notable team that he's been on is Fenerbahce. He also played on Adana Demirspor, which is a decent side in Turkey as far as I'm concerned. He only has four caps for the national team, so nothing too noteworthy there. But I don't know. He seems at least to get pretty consistent game time. He came to Fenerbahce in 2023. I think he went last winter transfer window, not in the summer, and he's made 27 appearances for them since. So it's semi-regular playing time, not a starter every game, it seems like. I don't know. It's not based on all that information. He's not someone who's going to excite you particularly. Um, I don't want to get my hopes down before anything even happens, or before he even kicks a ball for us. But yeah, it's not a signing that on paper is going to jump out at you and make you super excited, unfortunately. But again, it's also center back, so not a lot of center backs and are gonna jump out to you. It's not like you're gonna sign Cisse and you're gonna lose your head.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of those positions where it's not a very it's like a thankless position in a way, right? You're not really playing a very flashy game.
Yeah,
So long as we just add a body back there, somebody that's got some type of experience where, to your point as well, Jedvaj is kind of getting lost on those balls in the air. If we can get somebody solid next to Bart, I'm all for it, and I know you are too. Um,
that being said, there are players who are definitely could be more exciting, who we have been linked to. Like the one that we spoke about is Katsidiakos, who's a Greek international. That is actually, just to play devil's advocate to my own point, that is a center back who actually would get me and I think a lot of us excited. To contrast him with um, whatever the
Okay.
Turkish guy's name is.
I don't even know how to say his name.
Samet. Let's call him Samet. I think that's his first name,
Yeah,
right?
don't kill us,
Um,
Turkish fans.
to contrast with him, Hadzidiakos is 26, so he hasn't even hit his prime yet. He's a Greek international, so that's obviously raising the Greek aspect, which we know we need to do. Um, I think he has a decent amount of quality, obviously, which is indicative of him being on the national team. He is a little shorter, which is a little concern. He's 6'1", and we do currently have a problem with balls in the air. Jedvaj is not particularly strong in that category. Schengenfeld is not tall himself. He's only 6 foot, so he doesn't really help the aerial problems that we have. While Samet might help that issue more, but Hadzidiakos is someone who I think would get a lot of us excited about. I don't want to start any ridiculous conspiracies. We're not, he's been tossed around, but I don't know how solid it is, or how close we might or might not be. I would assume we are not that close because he's probably going to be pretty expensive too. I don't know what we're bringing in. I mean, Summit is a loan, so inherently not as expensive. But yeah, Hadzidiakos, especially if we're going to transfer him in, is not necessarily a cheap option. But Adoni, you could tell me if you have anybody in mind for center back also.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say to your point, Hadzidiakos is the one player that's been linked where it did kind of get me excited a little bit because he's a Greek national team player. We've seen him play. He plays in a really good league, and a lot of the talk that I'm seeing as well is that I think it was Korianopoulos, the journalist, where he was kind of mentioning that Panathinaikos is reportedly interested in him. It's just going to be quite difficult to bring him in. I think if we do somehow bring him in, it might be on a loan, and I don't even know if that's even going to be realistic, really.
I'm not sure why he would want to come back to Greece when he's about to hit the prime in his
Exactly.
career. So yeah, I don't. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I am a little bit worried on that regard in terms of getting him. My expectation is that we're not going to get him. I think we're just going to end up getting Samet, which again, at this point, just get a body back there. One thing that I actually just remembered right now is can Mladenovic also play as a center back? I thought when we signed him that he was like a left back center back hybrid.
I don't know, but I would guess no because of his attributes. He's like not even a left back almost. He's like a left mid wing kind of player because he's so attacking. So based on that information, I would guess that no, he wouldn't play center back, and I would be cautious to play him at center back regardless. I would much rather play one of the young guys at center back, Fikai, uh, excuse me, Sidaras.
Yeah,
Um, what I was gonna say, um, yeah, I was gonna ask you, what do you make of the fact? Do you think if Jovanovic was still here, we would have had a center back signing? And the easy answer is no, because we've seen the trajectory of how the Jovanovic signings have gone in past transfer windows. But do you think there was a center back option lined up from, let's say, early December, late November, something like that? And if so, why haven't we seen that happen? Or was that scrapped when Jovanovic got dismissed?
that's a really good question because, like, again,
Because
you,
there should sorry to interrupt, but because there should have been, like, in an ideal world, there should have been a plan to bring in a center back at that point, because we knew for months now that Magnuson was going to miss significant time. So the fact that we didn't have someone lined up seemingly since November, December, is really concerning. So sorry, I didn't want to I didn't want to take the question from you.
no, yeah, no, that and like that kind of just brings up my question. Like it just brings up questions within myself too because let's say we didn't have anybody lined up. it's like, where does the Limnios signing kind of come from? Because we like I agree with you. I think that was kind of already like pre-planned. And the concerning thing with Jova in the past was that like we waited and waited and waited, and it was kind of like last minute to bring in players with a name not even being thrown around, because the names being thrown around right now, like for example the Turkish guys. I mean, I don't think Ivan was looking at guys from Fenerbahce. This seems like that's a Terim thing.
100%.
Maybe Hadzidiakos, because I think Leoforos, the guy on Twitter, the one that said the thing about Limnios, he was mentioning that I think Hadzidiakos was being looked at, or Panathinaikos was sending out messages to agents or something for like a month now that they wanted to sign more Greek players. I think that's where Hadzidiakos and Bakasetas and all these players started being linked. Possibly that's where Hadzidiakos was, like the card was, but again, I don't think that was a realistic signing anyway. Um, but it is a little bit concerning because in the past with Jova, signings have just come out of nowhere. I mean, under this TD and everybody, we didn't really hear any news, and bam, somebody was signed, right? Possibly, right? That's what the case was, but then there is again the history of it not being there. Um, that is a concern a little bit, honestly thinking, because if we did have Jovanovic, would we just be sitting with our hands pat? Because Palmer Brown, I think, was supposed to come back in January, I think. And again, another injury there. So I really don't know. Like this whole situation is like, it's so obvious that's what we need. And something that is kind of frustrating me, and it's not on Terim. It's just it's like the what does that show from like the management in terms of like technical director and ownership and all that, that there's no like rush to sign a center back, or there was no like concrete names being thrown around and urgency, because they were urgent to sign Terim and fire Jovanovic. So it's
Yeah,
like we needed to
good
bring,
point.
yeah, like where's the urgency to win a title? Like you fire a guy because you want to win the Prodafima, and one of the tools that he's going to need is defense. Like, defense wins titles. I know that our coach isn't very defensive oriented, but still. And we're not seeing that solid linkage anywhere. It's just the Turkish papers and the Greek papers, and I really don't know. And that's where my concern is too. And I keep circling back again to that, what we started off with and what my points were in the chat the past couple of weeks, where yeah, we've got the coach, but what about like technical director and management and everybody? Do they have the ambition to win? Because they've signed a coach that has the pedigree. But like I said to the guys, if you have Pep Guardiola, I mean, he's still going to need players to defend at the back too.
Resources, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where my questions come in, where it's like, is Terim going to be able to be successful if our ownership doesn't seem to be, they're just kind of, hands in pockets type of thing with this situation? I don't know. That question just kind of brought up all these questions of my own now.
Yeah, I I I'm just gonna say this, and I have a fear that it's gonna kind of end up being like last year. Not only is it gonna come down to the last minute, but it's gonna end up being a rush signing. For example, let's look at last year. Last year, our problem was a winger, and we needed a winger, obviously, because Aitor went down, and we waited the whole transfer window, or we couldn't find someone, whatever, call it what you want. And then who did we end up getting? We ended up getting Mancini, who, no disrespect to Mancini, I think he actually was a good signing in the end, but we ended up getting Mancini, who was a quick option because he was from the same league and was a match ready option because he was playing games for Aris, and he could just get thrown into the match day squad for us right away. And it seems like to me, not only it seems like, but every passing day that goes on, that kind of signing is more likely. An in league signing who is match ready because he's from the league and has been playing games for his team in the league, so he could just be thrown into the game day squad right away when he signs. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to necessarily a bad thing, but you're just limiting your options at that point. Like if you're just resorting to within the league and this and that, that is minimizing the options so much. While if you're proactive about the problem in November or December, and you're like, okay, January is going to come, we have limited time, and not only do we have limited time, but we need it to happen sooner rather than later because we have a nightmare January. That is just keeping way more options open and keeping the potential for a more successful quality transfer. Um, so yeah, I don't want to say it's going to end in disaster, but we're just limiting our options at this point, I
Yeah, it's gonna show us where the management, where the administration kind of is, because I think if we do wait, just like we did last year, I think I have my answer. Because last year I was very critical of Jovanovic, where because I had thought that it was Jovanovic that was standing pat and waiting for the winger. We're linked with like the guy from Mexico, Antuna, and then we ended up signing Mancini, who I absolutely love. But if the same thing happens again, that it's beyond the coach at that point. It's the management, whoever's in charge there, of getting these signings over the line. So yeah, it is concerning because you want to win the league. That's the message that's been sent to me, by firing the old coach, a beloved coach that had us in first place. But you've got to give the resources. Like you said, you've got to have the resources for this new coach in order to win. Signing a random guy from, let's say, Ofi or Yanina or wherever, I mean, is that, yeah, we've got a body, like I keep saying, but at this,
might as well throw one of the young guys on if you want a body. Like the concern's
exactly.
not a body. The concern is quality. Like you're not going to be competitive for the league in the long run if you're just looking for bodies. You got to be
Exactly.
looking for quality. And
Exactly.
and
Because
like you said, you're not doing justice to Terim if that's not what you're doing.
exactly, because like Samet, for example, like he at least plays for Fenerbahce. It's one of the best teams in Turkey. So I automatically assume, okay, this guy, he's got some quality to him, right? Kazidiakos, goes without saying, we see this guy play for the Ethniki. He plays in a good league as well. Good player. But if we just wait and last second we're signing some guy from Aris, you know, it's it's like what a slap in the face too, right? Because we're trying to compete, and especially we should have already had somebody with because
That's the biggest concern. We should have already had somebody. There's no excuse not to have somebody, not just somebody, but multiple options that are ready to go, ready to be pulled the trigger on from November. Like there's
right.
absolutely no excuse. Like yeah, any
That that
any excuse is sugarcoating it.
that's kind of what dampened my mood on the Lumios signing too, where I'm like, we need a center back. We've signed a winger. I was like, kind of like, okay, you guys are quick to add to a position we have, but something we're desperate in is we're just gonna take our sweet time again. It's just so it just frustrates me a little bit because it's like where are our priorities? It's like we have our priorities all screwed up. Like that's the frustrating thing with supporting the team these past years, where like we do some moves where it's like, yeah, we want to win, and then when you're desperate, when you need something, that's when they just stand pat and wait, and it doesn't make sense. That's how we blew that 11-point lead last year. If you
Yeah,
remember, we had an 11-point lead. Right when we blew the lead is when we signed Mancini, when clearly we weren't able to score goals. And this
because he
is,
came too late. If
yeah,
we lost 3 games in a row in January. If Mancini had come January 1st, I'm not saying we would have won the league, but there would have been a different story.
yeah,
We wouldn't have lost 3 games in a row. We might have lost one or two, but definitely not 3 games in a row. Anyway, this is all speculation, but
right.
it just shows Mancini came like what, like the 25th of January or something. I don't
He
know. I don't
scored his
remember.
first game too.
Yeah, like it's yeah. Cause we were playing Vianney's right wing,
Yeah, we were. Yeah,
so
it was,
it's the same thing. Like how many? Look at this. We in a week we have Olympiacos, AEK, Olympiacos. In those 3 games, Jedva is gonna have to play all 3 games. Arao is probably gonna have to play at least 2 of them. Okay, we don't know which game Schengenfeld is gonna be back in. Hopefully he'll be back for probably not even AEK, but maybe for Olympiacos next week. But basically, long story short, Jedva and Arao are gonna have to play 3 games within a week. Is basically what we're headed to.
Right.
That's not gonna go down well for the third game. They're gonna be fucking dead. So
Right.
I don't know. Let's hope for the best. That's all we could say. But
Right.
this could have been avoided, and we're falling into the same problems that we did last year. We potentially fix one problem in the coach, sure, but like we've said a million times, and we're just repeating ourselves at this point. There's multiple problems. It's potentially the coach, and it's also the lack of personnel. Fine, due to injury, out of your control, but be proactive about it. Don't make the same mistakes two winters in a row, and we're already making the same mistake two winters in a row.
Exactly. Exactly. There's things that we can do to provide changes into this team. There's things that we can do to actually fix it. But yeah, it really is frustrating. And I just kind of think about that. And it does annoy me where, to Nick's point, I don't know if Terim fully knows what he's getting himself into, especially if we see these same patterns repeating themselves again and again in these winter and summer windows. Um, so
I think he does, honestly. And again, we're just speculating here, but he talks with a sense of confidence. Nick also pointed out that he doesn't go one interview without talking about the title. He mentions it like fucking 15 times per interview.
yeah,
Okay, is he just a cocky, confident person? Sure, like that could just be it. But it at least like feeling wise seems more than that. It seems like he genuinely believes that this is attainable. And to be fair, you should believe. You shouldn't be taking on a job that you think you're gonna not succeed in. But he genuinely thinks that this is the attainable goal and the realistic goal. And that he's saying all the right things, and I don't think it's just smoke. At least I hope it's not, but I also don't think it is.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think he knows what he's getting into, and I think he could right the ship in terms of personnel and go play the long game. What else
yeah.
can I say?
Yeah. That's yeah. I hope that's what it is. Where I trust in his abilities. I just hope that he understands too that like in terms of how it takes this team forever to sign players, especially the past couple of years. I'm hoping the same thing isn't going to happen again, and that you know, he does expect something on that front to change because I'm starting to think a little bit that it's kind of out of the coach's hands in terms of like them actually making these signings because they point out players I think that they want, and then it ends up being that I don't know we're gonna wait until January 31st to sign it when we're already desperate. Like I don't know. I can go all day on this,
Yeah,
and it just winds me up. Um,
I'm with you.
any final thoughts on the football club before we move on to the basketball team?
Um, Looking forward to Olympiacos. Do you wanna talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, yeah, right. Good point there. So tomorrow we're playing Olympiacos in the cup. Um, they've just come off of a weird loss on I think it was on Sunday against AEK.
Back
Very
to
com-
back losses because they also lost to Lamia.
that's right. Yes, they also lost to
Yeah.
Lamina. So they're gonna be coming for blood. We're in two different positions right now. Look, they've got their new coach and we've got our new coach. He's desperate to get his win. I don't think yeah, I think he's lost both games so far. I don't know if he's gotten a win yet.
Oh no,
Um
he's definitely won. He's got
oh,
more than two
oh
games.
he got signed
Yeah.
before the break, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So, our coach is gonna play his first derby against Olympiacos. We're building this positive momentum now. What worries me is Olympiacos is going to come out very motivated. They're pissed about all this stuff going on. On the pitch, off the pitch, whatever. That's their stuff. Um, they're going to have that sense of urgency. We've seen in the past these derby games. It doesn't matter how good or how informed a team is. These derbies are always one-offs, right? There's always
Yep.
something going on. So last time we played them, to Yova's credit, because people kept bringing up Yova's record recently in the derby games. We were out playing Olympiacos up until the stoppage. So in terms of our play style, we've got that new coach. I'm not too worried on the attacking front. It just goes back to again what we've been saying. It's the theme of the podcast. It's just defensively, Olympiacos does have the tools to kind of dissect us on the counter, which worries me. Now, Fortunis didn't have the best game against AEK, and I'm sure he's going to want to rectify that against us. Um, it's just going to be a game of if we can hold them off, and I'm hoping Brignoli can play tomorrow. I don't know.
I think he will.
Do you know why he didn't play last time?
I don't know. I would have. I hope it has nothing to do with the contract. I would have guessed that it's just rotation. It's just
Okay.
Lodigan getting minutes. I think Brignoli was always penciled in for this game probably, so Lodigan just got the start at the weekend. That's my guess. I really hope and don't think it has to do with the contract, but what do I know? That's just my hunch.
Right.
Um, in terms of Olympiacos, the positives are that I'm not very scared of them, and I'm not just saying that because they're fourth in the standings and like behind the top three, behind the rest of the pack. But I think they are the least threatening out of all the out of the top four. Like you said, it's a derby. Anything can happen. We just saw that with Aris and Pauk. Pauk are miles better than Aris, and Aris handed them a shock loss. So anything can happen in these games. Um, but I'm not particularly scared of them. I think this is in a way this is Terim's first test for sure, first big test. I think in many ways it's good that it's Olympiacos. I think it. I mean, I know we have Ike at the weekend, but it's good that he's starting off with the weakest out of the top teams. Um, so it's kind of just like in a way just going to escalate instead of getting thrown in with Pauk, for example, who I think are the strongest. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Anything can go. I think one good thing that's coming out of this is that we, based on what happened in the last game in whatever it was, September or October, we thought that at the forefront of our minds in this game was going to be the incident that happened then. And ironically, it's not. They've gone through the coaching change, like you said. We've gone through a coaching change. Yes, it will be behind closed doors, so it's not like a secret what the state of Greek football is, but at least for me, it's not that incident is not at the forefront, and I think it's better for just the flow of the game in general and just potentially also the quality of what we see from both teams. So yeah, I'm happy that it's kind of at least somewhat been forgotten.
Yeah, that actually is a good point. It just in a couple of months, a few months, just how much things have changed. I mean, like last time, that was the big topic where we feared, what's going to happen next. Now they've got their own little issue against Ike and that whole thing going on. It's just a bunch of whatever. I'm just glad we're not in the middle of it this time. Um, are we playing? We're playing away, right? For this first
And
leg?
I think we're home.
Oh, we're home. Oh, great. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're home.
So yeah, I'm like to your point. I'm out of all the teams, I think I'm really honestly scared of PAOK the most.
Yeah.
AEK next, and then Olympiacos out of the other. They're probably on the lower priority. Like I said, anything can happen. My prediction, I think we can get the win. I think we can get the win. I think we'll win this one tomorrow, 2-1 is my prediction. I think offensively, I'm confident in our guys and kind of what I've seen so far. Defensively, I think we might leak in a goal, just based on our setup right now and where we're at. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've got to go in there. We need to take advantage of their current mentality as a team. I mean, a shock loss against Lamia, a pretty brutal loss against AEK on the weekend that's kind of had them up in arms. So I'm going 2-1 for us to win. What about you? What's your prediction for that?
Um, I think I feel similarly. But I think we might even keep the clean sheet. I might go 2-0. I think despite a little shaky defense late versus Panetolikos, I think um Terim has actually under Terim we've been pretty solid defensively, even though we've been shorthanded. Obviously things change when it's not Panetolikos and Yanina and it's Olympiacos. So I'm not, saying it's going to translate 1-1, but um, Yeah, I haven't seen major defensive concerns despite the attacking focus. So I'm gonna say 2-0. I might even say 3-0, honestly. Like I think we could blow them away. I think this is a time where, they're way more unstable than we are. The one thing that does scare me about them is, like you said, that they're gonna be looking for blood, for different reasons. But especially on like seeing their fans talk on Twitter and stuff like that. Like they're kind of like in us versus the world kind of um mentality. So they're definitely fed up with not only Ike, but I think just everyone who's not red.
Yeah,
Um,
it's always been
so
like.
it's always been like that, but now it's like really like they're getting really like they're seeing blood. So I'm a little worried about that, but I think, like I said, I think this is the weakest that we've seen them in a while, the most unstable that we've seen them in a while. Uh, some of their fans don't even think that the coach is going to last more than the end of the month. So they're not in a good spot, and I think if there's ever a chance to put three or more maybe past them, it could be tomorrow. So I'm not getting my hopes up, but I think a win is a lock and maybe a big one. But what I wanted to ask you is, looking forward to Olympiacos and AEK, since it's two back-to-back tough games. Do you think there's going to be a rotation, a half rotation? Are we going to see basically the same personnel in both games? What do you think is how do you think he's going to manage two derbies within 5 days, let's say, because it's Wednesday to, I think we probably play Ike on Sunday. So Wednesday to Sunday, Olympiacos Ike. How's Terim going to manage that in your eyes?
Yeah, I think he may have to go. I mean, I think it may be a half rotation from Wednesday to Sunday, based on. I mean, just depending on what happens, really. So, let's say we win big tomorrow, right? Let's say we win 3-4-0, right? I think that kind of changes our outlook for the next couple of games, because then maybe you do stick with a similar lineup that you played against them, against Ike, and you can rest those players that played against, in those two games against Ike and Olympiacos for the second leg against Olympiacos. I think it all really just depends on what we're going to get tomorrow. If we get that big win, we'll probably see somewhat of, like you mentioned earlier, like we're probably going to see Arao play center back along with Yedvai. Those guys are probably, at minimum, they're going to play tomorrow and Sunday. And just depending on what happens with Bart, we might see Bart come back next Wednesday. Um, Offensively, I think you've got to go with Ioannidis no matter what tomorrow, and against Ike on Sunday, just to start him. He's the scorer. He's kind of like our conductor in a way for our offense. Um, Everything else, I mean, possibly we could probably see some. We've got the depth at wing, so I could see some swaps, right? I'd love to see Mancini play. And then, like you mentioned too, although Villena didn't really like break the world or break the internet with him playing on the right wing, we do know that we've got that as an option too. So wing wise, I think we're okay. It's just defensively, really, we're I think we're kind of screwed in a way. We're with that rotation piece, and tomorrow's result is going to kind of have a, let's say we get a 1-0 or a 1-1. Oh shoot, dude! I think our center backs or whoever our back line is going to be is going to have to play 3 straight games just to
I
kind of
think, yeah.
solidify.
I think the center backs unfortunately are not are there's going to be no opportunity for rotation there. I could see a situation where kind of every other position at least has the potential to be rotated. For example, I think wing backs. I could see a situation where we start Kotsiras tomorrow,
Yeah,
maybe Kotsiras and Mladenovic tomorrow, and then it changes for Ajax. We use the other two guys for Ajax. I could see that being the case. I could also see I could actually see I see an argument, even though I do agree with you that Fotis is our go-to guy at center forward. I could see Spor starting tomorrow, especially for two reasons. A, it's not do or die. There is a second game, and I know you never play, based on hoping that you're going to get the result in the second game, but it's not as do or die, I think, as getting a result against Ajax. So I could see Sporar starting for that reason. I could also see him wanting to reward Sporar for a good showing in the second half on Sunday, and then saving Fotis for Ajax on the following Sunday, this Sunday. So I could see a switch, a rotation between them two. I think you were right about the wings too. I think we could rotate the wings potentially, but I would like to see. I funny enough, Palacios didn't play on Sunday.
No,
That
no,
that to me says Palacios for sure on the right tomorrow.
yeah.
And I would hope Mancini on the left, and I could see neither of them starting on Sunday potentially. Maybe he starts one of them on Sunday and then goes with Aitor. Um, I don't know, but I think basically what I'm getting at with all of this is I would say a half rotation between the 2 days. I think is possible.
Yeah, that's probably the most plausible thing. Honestly, it makes the most sense. Honestly, kind of what we have to work with. Just those half rotations there, and then making the smart tactical subs. I think, like to your point as well, offensively and midfield wise, I think we're okay there in terms of making those rotations and those adjustments. Um, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I think between these three games, I'm honestly just really worried about Ajax. I want to win the Protathima. Like keep it low. Obviously,
Yeah,
you want to beat Olympiacos in advance and you want to win the cup. But Protathima for me is the big thing. If we can get the win over Ajax, that can kind of, I think that'll make a 4 point cushion between us and them.
five. We're two
Five.
up on both Pauk and Ike right now.
Okay, see, so yeah, that would be a 5 point cushion against them. So yeah, I mean that between all these games, I just hope Terim makes the right adjustments in terms of resting players when he needs to, so that we can play Ike. Which Ike is why I haven't been able to pay attention. Is Ike an away game for us as well?
Ike's away, yeah. Which
Okay,
I
so
think which I think is fine. I think I uh the situation with playing them away this year is different. Their new stadium effect is worn off. Obviously, they will still perform better home most games rather than not. But last year it was like a fortress, which is expected because first year that you build a stadium, you expect to basically win every home game regardless of opponent. But I think this year that's definitely at least a little bit worn off. So I'm not as worried to go there as I was last year. Obviously, especially because there's no fans. That's of course, a factor. But it definitely it's definitely a situation where we have to go there, and minimum has to be a draw. Which we
right.
could say about any derby away. You don't want to if you could go away and not lose, you've done something right at least. But yes, if minimum draw, a win would really be good.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I keep forgetting about the fan ban. Yeah. That's a big factor. I keep forgetting. This kind of nullifies the home and away. I mean, yeah, like mentally, I guess you're like, oh, I'm at home, but the fans really are the 12th man. Um, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We've got an interesting few weeks ahead of us. Hopefully next time we're on the podcast, it'll be a lot more positive when we talk about this string of results. Um, let's see. Any last things you want to add about the football club before we move on?
I think that's all I got.
Alrighty, yes. I think it's time we move on to the basketball club a little bit. So pretty eventful. Last week and this week, we had a road trip last week in EuroLeague where we played in Spain, and so historically, Spain has been kind of a challenge for Panathinaikos basketball club the last few years.
I
It's
think I
hard.
think we were without a win for 18 games. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was up there. It was in the double digits. It's been a while. I mean, they've got very good. The Spanish basketball league is probably the best European basketball league. So we kind of had our work cut out for us now. Bit of a bittersweet week where results probably should have been inverted. We had a lead against Baskonia, which ended up letting Baskonia back into the game and actually beating us. Very unfortunate. And in that game, Kostas Lukas, the captain, ended up picking up an injury. We saw a lot of similar things that we've been seeing throughout this season with Panathinaikos Basketball Club. Third quarter meltdowns, fourth quarter, lapses in judgment, and just elementary mistakes, like what Grigoni said. It was just a lot of defensive lapses and mistakes that you would expect, like, amateurs to make, really. Not boxing out, not closing out on the three, letting them win rebounds, letting them get hot. Pretty disappointing overall that game. We should have won that one. We had control. I think at one point we were up 17, and I kind of jinxed it. I sent it in the chat. I'm like, don't even bother watching, guys. This is such a big win. Like, as soon as I said that, we blew it. So I knew to shut my mouth from there on. The positive was we went to Valencia Thursday. So that was last Tuesday. We played Baskonia. Thursday we go and play Valencia, and it's almost the opposite effect, right? Back and forth game. We had, I forgot, it was like 6 lead changes by the second quarter. Valencia was hot from three. We'd start to build the lead a little bit. Valencia would come back. Valencia would take the lead. They would start to build the lead a little bit. And the game ended up being won by Matthias Lesor on a free throw. So he shot 2 free throws, missed the first one, made the second one. We ended up winning that game. I think it was 87-86. A little bit controversial. Valencia was awarded an and one. They were actually awarded 2 free throws because they said Jerry and Grant had fouled one of their players as he was going up for a layup. They reviewed the play. They challenged the call. Adaman challenged it. And on one of the angles, it was quite apparent that the Valencia player was elbowing Grant in the chest. Referees didn't see it. I guess they didn't agree. Luckily, thankfully,
they didn't even see the angle that really showed it. We spoke about this. The angle above the basket was the one that you could really see it, and they didn't even look at that angle.
Yeah, they didn't. We got to see it on TV on the stream. We got to see that he got elbowed. They didn't look at it. Was on the above the rim camera. They looked from behind and to the side where you couldn't really see it. As soon as it went above the rim, you could see that he got elbowed in the chest. Thankfully, as the saying goes, ball don't lie. So he missed one of the free throws, which ultimately helped us to win the game, because had he made both, we would have gone to overtime. So Adaman said it best after the game. It was like this week it should have been probably inverted a little bit, maybe. For that past week, where Baskonia we should have just won comfortably, and Valencia probably should have won. They ended up having their own meltdown, missing free throws, missing crucial shots, letting us back in the game. I thought that was a big win, especially that Slukas wasn't there. I think we kind of saw like the importance of I wrote about it when I wrote about the basketball team a few weeks ago, where Slukas is kind of like the key to the offense. When he's not playing, the ball isn't really being moved around. And that was a lot of what we saw, the struggles in the games in Spain, especially in Valencia, where, I love Kendrick Nunn, but I felt like Kendrick Nunn was kind of a reason that we lost to Baskonia, with his hero ball, in my opinion. He scored a lot of points, over 20 points, but 4 straight possessions where it was just stupid plays, like just chucking up a 3 early in the shot clock, going in for a drive with 3 defenders collapsing on him, dishing out the ball and turning it over. It was just a disaster. Versus, we played Valencia, same thing. He was kind of playing that hero ball, but we found a way to kind of win there. So, again, offensively, I think the key is to continue moving the ball. Slukas is a really big piece to that, and to stay away from the hero ball. Now, did you kind of notice anything that kind of stood out to you in those 2 games in Spain last week?
Specifically what you just pointed out, the hero ball, and what specifically stood out about that for me is that it reminded me of a game we had probably a month or so ago now, maybe a month or 2 ago. It was one of those OT games, regardless. I don't remember against who, because we had obviously a few of them, but it was that game where we lost by quite a bit in OT because we were running all our plays through Mitoglu, and all they needed to do, whoever they was, I don't remember the opponent, was they needed to shut down Mitoglu in OT. and then we were fucked. Then we had nothing going for us. And to be fair, in that game, Mitoglu was our best player, so it wasn't like, oh, we were running plays through our worst player. No, we were running plays through our best player, but that was all that we were doing. There was no creativity. There was no adjustment being made. And like I said, all they had to do was shut our only play down, and then we had nothing. And this was exactly like it, exactly the same, except like they didn't have to do anything. All that had to happen was none had to go cold at the wrong time, which is what happened. Like, yes, he was our best player in that game. He was, he had over 20 points or whatever, and especially in that fourth quarter, he was putting down the shots. But all that had to happen was just him go cold and just make uh run four stupid consecutive plays for, kind of forcing it, basically, for a lack of better wording. And then we had nothing. So
Yeah.
I agree with you that we did lose that game because of none, whether it was because he was, selfishly taking the plays, or, those were the plays that we were running from the bench from Ataman. But there was definitely better, I don't know, can I say better options? Basically, what I think is that during our hot streak in basically like December, and I think you pointed out and we spoke about it in the chat, that a big thing that we had going for us is that we were playing like a team. Like, we weren't playing any hero ball. There wasn't anyone soloing it. Like, yes, you had standout performances from like Mitoglu, and Grant has been obviously very solid for a big stretch. None has been very solid. So you do have those standout performances, but it was never the case where, we were just focusing on one player. We were just running all our plays through Mitoglu. We were just running all our plays through None, and all the plays through Grant. It wasn't that. And that's what led to our success through, however many games in December. And that Baskonia game just felt like reverting back before the December success, and it just felt kind of bad. But we did bounce back in the Valencia game, even if, like you said, the results should have been swapped. But still, it did feel good to bounce back and not continue those bad habits that we had already seen earlier in the season.
Yeah. The positive, and it kind of goes into today's result as well. We played on Adulu. The positive is, back before that win streak in December, the team, has shown some negative signs, right? Where they kind of choke leads away. They make a lot of just amateurish mistakes. And to your point as well, I don't know if it's Coach Ataman that's, running plays, or if it's just the agreement is that, Kendrick, you've got the green light. You're going to go, because I love Kendrick. No, like he's a great player, but it's kind of obvious every time he gets the ball, he's gonna shoot the ball, or he's gonna go to score. Like, I notice he likes to pass a lot to Mitoglu when he does pass out for a three, but like 9 times out of 10, when he has the ball, he's gonna go to score. And it's kind of like live and die by the sword in a way, because he's either gonna get you the bucket or he's gonna get you a turnover. So I don't know if that's Ataman, because he's more of a like a player's coach, where he kind of lets them figure it out a lot.
Right.
We kind of saw that today as well, where the team was essentially up big, up 22 points against Anadolu, who to their credit, I mean, I don't know, they just can't win. That lately they just can't win. Their coach Erdim Chen he's on the hot seat right now. They just got off a quadruple overtime against Real Madrid, so that kind of played in our favor. So we were up 22 points, and they're starting to go on runs. They cut it down to 14. Okay, maybe call a timeout. They cut it down to 8. It's call a timeout. Doesn't call a timeout, right? They eventually cut it down to 6, and I think 3. And it's like, Ataman, like, dude, you've got to call a timeout. The timeouts weren't coming, or they're coming too little too late to when they were catching up a lot. So some of it is, I think Ataman's got to step in a little more and kind of calm the players down, because you see their confidence start to wane. As soon as the other team starts hitting a few threes, Grant gets a little jittery, I noticed. So, kind of thinks about when he goes to shoot. Slukas kind of goes and makes a stupid arid pass. Lasor flails and tries to get a foul. And like they start kind of playing like anxious and rushed. And in basketball, you don't want to rush. Like you want to kind of take your time because that's when you start making horrible mistakes. Um, and it kind of like, the discussion was kind of brought up today where I think Alki and Kutz were talking about it, where it's like, is Ottoman a good coach? Um, and I kind of wanted to like present that to you. Like, what is your opinion, Alex? Like, do you think Ottoman is a good coach for this team? Do you think a lot of like the struggles come from Ottoman, or is it like a player thing?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough question for me to answer because I'm not super. I'm not as inclined in basketball as I am in footy, but I think stuff that you're pointing out is kind of the best things that we have to go off of, like the lack of being able to read the game in certain situations, like not calling the timeouts in certain points, especially against a team that he knows well, because he knows FS well and he knows the players well. Like if you see Larkin, who he knows well and has coached himself, start to like heat up and hit the threes, like you said, like what are you waiting for? It's like it's not even unfamiliar territory. It's like it cannot be more familiar to you, and you're still like just like this, like
Yeah.
so even factoring that into, it's like, yeah, what the hell are you doing? So from that perspective, yeah, I would have to say that does that make them like the worst? No, but it is at the very least questionable decisions. Kind of like we were saying, like with Jovanovic, just to bring it back to the football. Like, is Jovanovic a terrible coach because he will never do a halftime sub and only subs at the 60th and 80th minute? No, he's not a terrible coach, but it's definitely not a plus. It's definitely a minus. Same thing, that the lack of timeout calling at the correct time doesn't make Ataman the worst coach, but it's not a good thing. It's not a positive quality. Other than that, I don't know how he is with handling the players. It seems like there are times where he doesn't call the right plays. For example, in the Grigonis game winner against Monaco, it was Mitoglu who specifically didn't run the play that was chalked up, and he passed it to Grigonis. So is Ataman calling the wrong plays? I mean, potentially. Are there better plays to be called? Potentially. Um, you posed the question too, like, is it Nunn taking it upon himself to take those shots, or is it Ataman saying like, you guys do you? I don't know. The Nunn thing is also kind of weird because like we kind of know that he's looking to get back to the NBA. Is he taking these hero shots because he's trying to showcase himself? I think that could be, possible. So I don't want to blame Ataman fully for that, but yeah, I think everything that you've said and that I just, kind of summed up are, you know, signs of concern in Ataman's coaching.
Yeah, no, all really excellent points. And like I agree. I think Ottoman, I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's a good coach. He's got his flaws, like you pointed out. Like for example, like the Yova example, right? Yova's a good coach, but him not making subs is a flaw, right? That's part of his coaching philosophy. That's probably a flawed philosophy, right? Ataman, like not making the timeout calls when needed, I think that's a bit of a flaw. At least it was a flaw today, right? Because they were able to cut down that lead pretty quickly. I think something that kind of works in a positive but can also be a flaw is like, again, he's a player's coach. Like a lot of like Spanulis had an interview. He was Ataman's assistant at the Greek All-Star game a couple weeks ago. Spanulis was kind of explaining, Ataman is he's the type of coach where he lets the players kind of freely do what they want in a way on offense. So that's where we kind of have that. I think that Kendrick Nunn um, offense there. I think in basketball, the thing that I get a lot is the coach can really do so much. I feel like in footy, it's a lot more apparent. In basketball, what I've noticed is like I know it's completely two different teams in two different leagues. Like I follow the Celtics in the NBA, and I've seen the team go through three different coaches over the last like 7 or 8 years with a similar core of players. And with three different coaches, I've still seen the same similar issues popping up. And so it at some point it's the players too. I think
Right.
like a lot of times like the onus gets put on the coach, and like to somebody brought up a point. I'm like, hey, Adaman's winning. He's the first winning coach we've had in years, and it's like, yeah, but he's got a good team, and that is a good point. But I mean, just look at last year, right? Guys like Grigonis, right? Grigonis sucked last year, and it wasn't really Grigonis' fault. It was the role he was given. It was the coach that he was playing with. Um, and so Adaman kind of, I guess, he came in and he's made a difference in that regard, where he's kind of given these players some free role. And I think him giving them a little bit free reign also like allows them to play more positively. Because again, you don't want to be too relaxed, but you don't want to be too strict where some coaches limit you on like you're only allowed to shoot 1 3 in this quarter. And then, Papa Petru, for example, another example. Papa Petru was the captain of the team, doing pretty good. Left Panathinaikos last year, went to play in Partizan under Jelko Obradovic, and he was like one of the best players there. And so it just all really depends, honestly. I think Ottoman is fine. I think we're gonna make the playoffs, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Um, it's really tight. I think everybody's like within one win and one loss of each other, so it's still close. But I think we're a playoff team. We're not. We're not. I don't think we're making Final Four like he keeps saying that. That's. I don't know. I don't know what it is with these Turkish coaches.
I'm more confident now. But yeah, these Turkish coaches are like they just got the biggest heads.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. They're like. I'm like, hey, you know what? I wish I had some of that confidence, but I think we're a playoff team. I think we'll be okay. Now the concern, and we kind of brought this up. I wanted to bring this up. The concern is like we got rid of Kyle Guy last week, and Luca Vildoza looks like he's out for the season. I think he had that meniscus injury. He had the surgery. So we play that two guard system a lot. And now in our rotation, it looks like we've only got three guards when we used to have five guards. So we've got no, oh wait, I think we have four. We've got Grant, we've got Slukas, we've got Kendrick Nunn. Oh yeah, and then Vildoza's injured, so we just got three. We used to have five. So going forward, um, that's where it's like, is Ataman gonna switch to playing one guard and going all bigs around, or two wings and two bigs? Time will tell, and who knows if that's gonna affect our record or not, because again, Vildoza was the MVP the other day against Peristeri, I think it was, in the league. We won that game. And he also did well against Valencia. He was one of the big reasons why we won the game. So we're down him, but he also wasn't playing too many minutes before those two games. It's just all up in the air now, really, because it's like what's going to happen to the team going forward there? Because Ataman had said, I don't want any more signings. But now it's kind of like maybe we're forced into a signing. And again, I think that the deadline is like February to bring in a player. So I don't know, man. It's going to be really, really interesting going forward with this basketball club. I think we're making playoffs. I keep saying it. It's just I don't know if we're Final Four ready with all of these factors tying in.
I think we're. I mean, the injury to Vildoza is unfortunate, and I think you're right, and it ties really nicely into our conversation about Ataman. Like it'll show, not if he's a good or bad coach, but it's something to consider, and it'll show like if he's ready to make an adjustment, if he's willing to move away from the two guard system or not. In terms of where we're going, I think we are. I mean, we'll definitely make playoffs. I'm not super concerned about the playoffs, even though, like you said, like 4 through 10 is within 1 or 2 games of each other. But at the same time, I think we're only 2 games away from third. I'm not saying we're gonna catch third, but Barcelona's ahead of us, and it's really first is Madrid, second is Bologna, fine, but even third is attainable from us or anyone else. Like it's very open. So I think we could definitely make playoffs. I don't want to get my hopes too much about Final Four. Ataman obviously has said what he said multiple times, but I like the trajectory that the team is taking. I think we've definitely built good habits over the past few months. The beginning was kind of the rocky start. Um, if you consider that we started 2-4 and now we're 12-8,
Right.
so that's 10-4. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So that's 10-4 in the past 14, with a few win streaks in the middle, a win streak of 4 or 5, and then another win streak of 4 or 5 afterwards. Um, so I think the team is building good habits. Yeah, I think we're also, you know, at the same time we're falling into some bad habits. You pointed out how we're kind of getting used to blowing big leads. It's been twice in the past 3 games that we've blown, 17-point lead against Baskonia, 22-point lead against Efes. That's, 2 of the past 3 games, like I said. So that's a bad habit, and that's becoming kind of a pattern, which is not what you want to see. But we are getting the results, especially in close games, something that wasn't happening earlier in the season. We were losing those ball rolls. We were losing those OT games, which were close. So, like I said, the team is building more good habits than bad habits, and I think the trajectory is good. We have Monaco on Thursday at home, so that's obviously a tough game. That we beat them by the buzzer beater, the Grigonis buzzer beater last time out. But I I like where it's going.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like taking the positive from some of the negative, like yeah, to that point we've been blowing leads. And I laughed. I mentioned that what I think it was Grant that said it, right? Where he was like, "Yeah, we're built for these games or whatever." Like, I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't want to constantly blow leads and like have to do this to yourself." That's where I just kind of found it funny. The only good thing is that like where we've seen progression, we've seen some development there where we were blowing these games and then losing. Now we're blowing these games and winning, but we've just got to stop blowing these games. In basketball, blow like 20-point lead, especially like in NBA, for example, that's like nothing. Like you'll blow a 20-point lead pretty quickly because of the threes. But I mean, to blow it and then lose the game is a really bad thing. We need to like step on their necks, have a comfortable win. I think our only really like comfortable win has come against, I think it was like Alba Berlin, where it was like we were easily, I think, up like 20 points pretty much the whole time. Again, I mean, we're still getting ourselves figured out, but games like today where
I think even Alba was a tight game. I think maybe Bayern was kind of like a blowout, but the Alba was kind
yeah,
of because it was away. It was kind of like it was kind of labored too, that one, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that was just a side note.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, it must have been. I think yeah, because Bayern was like our second EuroLeague game, and that one was
Yeah,
like all game we were up. Like I wasn't worried. Alba, funnily enough, which is one of the worst teams, like we
yeah,
struggled. Um, but yeah. So we kind of struggled there, but like Anadolu, right? They just came off of a quadruple overtime game. They're tired. They had no legs. Their players are airballing shots. Realistically, like we should have put our foot on their necks. Like that should have been
yeah.
one of those situations where I didn't think we were gonna win by 22, but I thought we were gonna probably comfortably win double digits, 10, 12, 15 points, whatever. Um, but in the end, we got the win. It mattered when it mattered most. Slukas hit his free throws as well. That's another positive. Something that's been kind of since last year in the final. He had chances to tie the game for Olympiacos in the final. He missed those free throws. He's been missing crucial free throws. So he got the crucial free throws today that iced the game. So we are seeing that progression. And again, like you mentioned, we've got Monaco on Thursday. It's a double week this week, and we're both games are at home. So hopefully we can get the double and beat Monaco, who again they've got good players, Mike James, Kemba Walker. So I think we'll win. I think we'll build from these habits and get these wins. It's all really just starting to fall in place a little bit. I don't think it's as panicked and as the sky is falling as when we first started the season off. I remember we were
Yeah.
kind of like, we were seeing the fans on Twitter kind of just going crazy. Um, so we'll see. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Did you have anything that you wanted to add for the basketball team at all?
No, not for the basketball, but I just wanted to point out about the blogs that we've been doing.
Right.
I know Sturge plugged it in the podcast last week, but we've been doing blogs. Adoni, you've done one, Sturge has done a couple, I've done a couple. I think I speak for all of us that we spend quite a bit of time doing them, and we do quite a bit of research doing them too. So, and we have fun doing them, so it's not a chore at all, but we do spend time. So you people reading them, anybody reading them and giving us a little time back, it feels good. And we like doing it, so it's not anything that's difficult on our end. But yes, if you want to read them, give them some time. If you're interested in the topics, we'd love for people to read them, as many people as can read them, to read them. And there's going to be more to come, I'm sure. I think the latest one is probably from me, but I think Sturge has one that he wanted to do. He mentioned, Adoni, you might have something lined up also. Uh, and I'm sure we'll get more people involved who haven't done them yet. So that's just a little thing that's going on the side in terms of what we got going on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great plug. And for you guys that are listening, the blog is a great thing for us as those of us that are diaspora Greeks. I know not all the listeners and not everybody that follows Panathinaikos can read Greek. So the blogs kind of add something towards the English speaking demographic, right? We, like Alex said, a lot of us spend time researching. A lot of us, we watch the games, we research, we look into things, we read articles, we translate some things. So it's just a great incentive to read and also kind of pick people's brains a little bit, kind of look
Yeah,
at the team from another perspective, right?
yeah,
Alex or I or Sturge or whoever's writing may see the way that the offense is oriented on the team or the defense is coordinated in a different way, right? And that might change our perspective, or we might add our 2 cents. And always feel free as well, you guys, to comment on our social media pages as well and follow us on there at Pal Fans International. We love having dialogues with fans. We love having interactions with fellow Panathinaikos fans. And yeah, again, we put work into it. We're dedicated. We love this team, and we just want to spread knowledge and love for that towards a wider audience, towards those that again speak English or don't fully speak Greek.
and
Um,
it's good to point out that the blogs also have a varying range of topics. Obviously, you know, our forte is the FC and the BC, so it's mostly going to be about that. But like Adoni, you did something about the basketball.
right.
Sturge and I have done about the football. So if you're interested in the basketball, if you're interested in the football, there's something for you to read. We talk about specific players. Sturge looked into specific players, for example, Foti, Sporar, Yeremayev, so specifically at the strikers. I've done stuff about looking at, kind of the team in general and what's gonna happen under the new coach. So there's a varying range of topics, something for basically anyone, I would say. Um, so yeah, give it a look if you haven't. Give it a read. Give them all a read. Um, yeah, that's all I got.
Nice, yeah, man. Well, thanks, Alex. It's again been great catching up with you. I think it's been a couple weeks since we were on the pod last.
It feels like it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly busy last few weeks or so for us, but back on. It was good having you. Good discussing Panathinaikos. And next time, again, I'm hoping that it will be positive when we're back on. Hopefully, we've got some more wins under our belts, and our team's going to be looking a lot better than where we're at right now. So, thanks for joining me, Alex, and thanks for listening in, you guys. Thanks for all the support. Please be sure to give us a like, follow on social media, share this podcast with fellow Panathinaikos fans. We look to continue to grow and expand and share our love for this club. Thank you, guys.